back for part 2. So yeah, as you can see here, we have a lot of figurines already, and we're gonna open up this next box. Pretty large as well. I think so far we haven't gotten any specials. There's supposed to be some special mystery ones that can possibly come, but we didn't get any of those. That's okay. But you know, back to kind of what I was saying, I think I want to add like a little bit of more value to you guys for success mindset. And one of the things I want to talk about as I'm unboxing this next one is really the speed at which you're kind of operating. So we've talked a lot about how, like, you know, success is a very long journey and it's just very difficult and it's gonna take a lot of time, you need a lot of patience. But I think one thing that really separates successful people from, you know, maybe the average person is just kind of the speed with which they work. Here's all the boxes. Like the speed at which they work and the speed at which they make decisions. Because if you're really trying to make it, you know, become successful as soon as possible, as fast as possible, you kind of have to act like you're running out of time. And I think this is where we can learn a lot from, you know, kind of procrastinators and people who like to delay stuff a lot, because they usually don't really worry about anything until the very end. But like, if you look at how they act towards the end, they are really on fire. You know, they're just really rushing, acting like they have no time left because they really don't. And I'm not saying like you should procrastinate, but what I'm trying to say is that that level of intensity is something you typically see in a lot of successful people. Because like, why? Why is that? Well, it's because they realize that if they're trying to accomplish a lot and maybe they don't have like as much time as they would like. So the only solution is to kind of work faster and try to spend more time on what actually matters, like what's actually going to make you successful, or how you're going to improve your skill set, how you're going to grow yourself, and spend less time on what doesn't matter. This kind of like, you know, physically manifests itself in like a lot of different ways. So one of those ways is, for example, if you know you're trying to spend some time making a decision about something. One of the things we need to like be careful of is that we don't reach this point of decision paralysis. I already have this one, so I'm gonna put it back. Decision paralysis can come when the two options we're given are so close in comparison to each other, they're very similar, that it's almost impossible to actually make a decision because they're so similar. And in those cases, what we really need to realize is that actually, if the two options are so similar, we should understand that like it probably doesn't matter, because if it was a really big decision and there was a big difference between one of the options or the other, then we would know right off the bat which one to choose. But if we're sitting there and like spending days and days or hours and hours trying to decide, and we have like this dilemma, it's probably because both options are okay, and we're looking at the minute details of the differences in those options, right? So what's one example of this? Well, maybe like, you know, what are you gonna eat for dinner? If you really can't decide what you're gonna eat for dinner in like 10 minutes, it's probably because like it doesn't really matter that much to you, you know? Or the two restaurants you're choosing between aren't actually like that different, and you don't really care that much between it. And you may be like, okay, well, why are you bringing up dinner? Like, how is that even relevant? You're just kind of setting yourself back by like, you know, working very slow, because it's kind of like, you know, imagine if you purposely decided to limp during a marathon, like, and you didn't have any issues. Like, that's not gonna help you at all, right? That's gonna actually hinder you a ton. And that's kind of what happens when you work very slow and you spend a lot of time on stuff that doesn't make a big difference. Like, I'm not saying you can't like, you know, spend time on actually making decisions and stuff, but I'm really just saying like you need to recognize what is an important decision and what is a decision that doesn't really matter that much, and try not to spend that much time on those decisions that don't matter that much, because you need to free up as much time as possible to kind of like work or do kind of other things. And you can't be sitting there all day just trying to decide what you're gonna eat for dinner. Right? Like, you have to realize there's priorities. Yeah. I think another key aspect of successful people is that they really have their energy typically dialed in. So they understand when they have the most energy and they're most like awake, effective, etc. Now, I'm not saying they use this as like a crutch, because there's going to be times when you have to work and you don't feel like working and you feel kind of tired, and you know, there's all sorts of excuses start popping up. But you need to like take care of your body, and you need to try to like understand when are you most like productive and try to use that to your advantage, okay? Because why would you like purposely work late at night if like you don't, you know, if you know you're not productive late at night? Like, there's some people, everybody's body's different, right? Some people work really well at night, I don't. So I recognize that, and instead I like, you know, kind of set my whole schedule of work around being an early riser and getting stuff done early in the morning. I will say, from a personal perspective, I'm obviously very biased, right? Because I've been doing this for a long time. And I mean, I guess like at least like no, actually probably like 5 years of like waking up early. But like what I would say is that waking up early does do something a little bit different than like working later in the evening. And it's that like if you wake up early to do a task and you finish it, you start to build this thing called like morning momentum, which I talk about a lot. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because like success is a lot about systems and kind of how can you optimize your systems so that way it takes less brain energy to kind of go throughout your day. What do I mean by that? Well, this is why people have habits, right? Because they run on autopilot, and if you set them up correctly, they can actually be very, very beneficial for you, right? If you started a habit of reading every night, well, now it's very easy for you to read every night because you're just used to it, right? It's not something that's like crazy you have to force yourself to do. And something I've realized over like pushing myself, I think for the past couple of years, is that you can actually make working hard a habit. You can make that like your default mode. And that's honestly, like, I think out of all the superpowers you can have to try to like expedite and speed up your, success journey, being able to have a habit of working hard and like always just doing a little bit extra, etc. That is probably like one of the best extra things you can have. Because now your baseline, like the bottom of what you can do is going to keep getting raised up, and you push yourself. So now you're just doing this much. Eventually you'll get to a point where this actually becomes your baseline. This becomes your bottom line. And then your bottom line of what the minimum that you're going to do is already above what most people will do on an average basis, which is like, that's really where you want to be, because becoming successful, it's like such a small percent of people, right? So you have to really differentiate yourself from people as much as possible, because otherwise, if you do what everyone else is doing, you're not going to get what like other people are not getting, right? So if you want to become very wealthy and successful, if you copy the kind of, just minimum wage worker, like most of the time, you're not going to be able to learn a ton from them that's going to be able to propel you to where you need to be, right? You have to kind of like look at people who are above you and always be chasing them. And so by constantly working hard and raising your own bottom line of like the minimum level, your threshold, I think I really want to talk about this a lot more because your threshold is super important. If you have a high tolerance or high threshold for work, you're going to go much farther than somebody who has a very low threshold. Oh wow, this is pretty cool. There's a snake here with a hat. I wonder if this is a special one? I don't think it's a special one, but maybe it's a secret one. I have no idea, honestly. But with like that high threshold, it's gonna allow you to kind of push past a lot of things where like people will give up on. And that's like the most important thing, because so many people will like give up early, and it's like if you just can push past them and you just like don't give up, now all of a sudden you are competing with less people, right? Because like if you're in a group of 10 and let's say you're doing like a test and the test is really hard, and after the first problem half the people give up, but you just decide to keep going, and then after the second problem maybe another half of those people remaining give up, then now you're dealing with like 2 to 3 people left, right? And so that's much better odds than if you're like competing with all 10 in the beginning. So I think like there's just so many things about like success that are so like specific and small, and things you only realize after doing hours and hours of work and constantly pushing yourself, which is really why like I'm trying to share this with you guys, because I think that if you're doing it on your own, it's a very difficult thing, and I think there's a lot of places you can go wrong. I'm not saying I've like completely figured out everything, but I am saying that I think I have a better understanding than maybe most people of like what it takes, and I feel like I've pushed myself quite a bit to the point where I have some kind of credibility to talk about this stuff. But I'm of course always open to like answering any questions you guys have. But I think that it's just crazy because like no one talks about kind of this journey of self-improvement, because really the key thing to become successful is all starts with you. Like we said, you can be given a lot of money, but if you don't have the personal skills, or you don't know what you're doing, or you don't have confidence in yourself, that stuff really doesn't matter. It's all just kind of like gonna disappear and kind of go away, etc., etc., and it's not gonna be there forever. So this is why you always gotta build up your personal skills. Oh, it's kind of cool. Look, this is a secret one. So if you can see, but that pretty much says secret, and that's the shape of the pilot. So that's pretty nice. I didn't know we got a secret one. Look at that, pretty cool. Like I think the craziest thing, and like the best probably analogy that I can come up with for like why a lot of people are not successful in today's world is because of a lot of reasons, right? And we're obviously all born in different situations. But the way I view it is that if you work hard, you should be able to at least improve your situation somewhat. If you work hard and always try to keep learning and keep looking for new opportunities, you should be able to relatively like improve your situation, whatever it may be, right? If you don't take a risk, if you don't work your hardest, if you don't try to be the best that you can be, like what else are you gonna do? You're gonna just be mediocre like your whole life? Like that's that's fine, I guess. But like, if you're living your life, right, and we all only have one life, like, why would you not just try hard on it? You know, it's like, what? So what if you fail? Like, you're gonna look back when you're 80 years old and wish you took more risk, or wish you just like weren't afraid as much of what people thought. So if you can kind of put yourself in that position, you start to realize what's actually important, what's not. And to be quite honest, the things that people consider to be important in today's world, most of those things are not really important when you kind of get towards the end and you start to realize, oh, like family is actually important, you know, or like, you know, spending time with like loved ones, or those kind of things that actually matter the most, or doing what you want to do and at least trying on something is actually like important. Like, unfortunately, I think those are things that people will not realize until it's often too late to actually go back and start taking those opportunities and those risks. Because honestly, the harsh truth is that no one's opinion of you is like paying you, is really like helping you. Like, yeah, hopefully maybe your parents, you know, are like looking out for you, and maybe some of like your friends and classmates can give you some good advice. But besides that, like, if someone doesn't like what you're wearing, if they think you're weird, etc., like their opinion of you, yeah, maybe it hurts a little bit, but like, it is not gonna give you, like, if you respect that opinion, if you think, oh, I need to dress differently to like kind of appease this person, that's not gonna get you a better job. You know, like, it's not, has no real world like output of you changing yourself to try to fit in with like one person. There are like, what, probably 9, maybe 10 billion people on this planet. It's like, if you really talk to each and every one of them, they're gonna have a different opinion of you, right? Some of them are gonna think you're doing the amazing thing and they like absolutely love you, right? So it's like, you can't just keep playing this game of chameleon and trying to just change yourself like as much as possible, right? You have to really just stay true to who you are and take the criticism that comes with it, because otherwise you're really just living for other people and you're not living for yourself. Once again, I just said something that I think most people will not realize until it's far too late, until like they can't go back in time to actually change how they live. And that's the crazy thing too. It's like, you see people out here who are just like wasting their days away, just, you know, scrolling reels like 24/7. Like, yeah, I understand, maybe like 1 to 2 hours a day, okay, fine. But like, if your screen time is like 6 hours of reels a day, like, dude, come on. Like seriously, there's gotta be something better to do with your time. Like, you can't just be scrolling reels all the time and then just be kind of upset when you don't have the things you want in life. Like, you really need to be out there kind of pushing yourself, testing yourself. Because, you know, like, these things I'm telling you, like these kind of realizations that I have, it's not like I woke up yesterday and all of a sudden I just had in my mind, wow, like I know these kind of realizations, I know how I should do this, I know XYZ. Like, no, this is from legitimately like probably 5, 6, maybe 7 years of just like working. And like, yes, it's in like a school context, but I don't think it really matters. Like, in any context, you just trying to work, grow, and improve yourself, you're gonna continue to come to these realizations of like, wow, you know, this is really hard. Wow. Some people like hate on me for, you know, kind of working hard, or like they don't think it's like cool or whatever. You know, wow, that's like a very different perspective. Oh wow, like, you know, there's like friends who have different priorities than me, and you know, it's just like kind of a completely different situation. And so you have to be like totally okay with that. And I think the key thing is you have to be used to kind of yourself in a sense. Because if you're relying on someone else to push you, as soon as that person's not there, it's game over for you. Like, you're donezo, right? But if you do have somebody who's like pushing you, and that person's yourself, well, guess what? You're always gonna be with yourself, right? You're always gonna have yourself as like maybe your motivator or something like that can always be there for you. So if you have yourself pushing yourself, you're gonna be able to go much farther than if you rely on someone else to push you. Once again, that's why it's kind of a very, very long process. Going back to the speed thing of how fast you're kind of working, I want you to just think about like kind of compounding effects, right? Like, a lot of times people talk about investments and they're like, oh yeah, there's compound interest in my savings account, or, you know, it's like adding and continuing, etc. Like, think about compounding work in the sense that, like, imagine if today is a Monday, and let's say for the week I was assigned a set of 10 things I need to finish. You have me and you have my friend, okay? And let's say my friend finishes one of those things Monday, okay? But they decide to go out and party, or I don't even know, it doesn't have to be partying, honestly, they just go out and do something else. Then I sit there and I finish, let's say, 2 of those things. So I finished 2 of those tasks instead of just 1. So you may be like, okay, Ryan, that's not a big deal. You still have 8 tasks left. He still has 9. 8 and 9 is not that big of a deal. Well, the thing is that when I go to the next day, now I'm already like kind of 1 task ahead of them. And then let's imagine that second day, that Tuesday, oh, I should start checking these before I open them. Okay, this one I don't have it as well. Yeah. Let's say that Tuesday, you know, I finish another 2 tasks, he finished another 1 task. Like, that's just kind of called compounding work. And it's really the key that separates you, starts to really provide a huge amount of separation. Like, you know, in one day, not that much separation, right? Because you're still pretty much like very close to each other in the sense that I only finished one more task than he did, right? But if you talk about like in the time span of like a year or, you know, even longer than that, like talk about one task compounded each day, right? If I had to finish one extra task in that person each day, what is that going to be over a year? That's 365 extra tasks that I finished, right? Even if I only finish, let's say 5 tasks per week, 5 weeks, sorry, 5 tasks per week, 52 weeks, that's like 260, I think, yeah. 260 extra tasks. Like that's the equivalent of probably, I don't know, just a bunch of other stuff I could have finished that that person didn't finish, right? And I think so often like we're compared on the fact of like what we need to finish in terms of traditional stuff. So for example, oh, I only need to finish my schoolwork. So it doesn't matter. As long as I finish that, I'm fine. Well, it kind of does matter because now you're gonna have a person who's gonna finish their schoolwork and they're gonna do something else. And they're gonna still experience this compounding effect. And then by the end of the year, you're gonna look at it and you're gonna realize that, you know, yes, you finish your schoolwork and you finish whatever you're required to do, but they went above and beyond and they actually like tried out so many more things. And why does it matter they tried out more things? What they're doing is they're building their like kind of foundation of experience. They're failing more and more. They're trying more and more things. They're learning more and more. So by the end of the year, they simply just know more and more because they've experienced more and more. This is why we associate wisdom with age, right? Because we assume that over time, through more and more years, you have actually, you know, accumulated some sort of intelligence or knowledge or something from all those experiences and failures you've had throughout those years. And so we assume younger people can't have those same failures or experiences because they're simply just too young to have had those experiences and failures. But the reality is if you like speed run failure and you speed run trying out new things, you speed run learning, you can actually bypass a lot of like kind of middle-aged adults because they simply are just not trying. They're simply just, you know, waking up, just going and existing, and they're not pushing themselves each and every day or trying to learn new things all the time. Obviously, there's exceptions to what I'm saying, but if you're trying to constantly grow, you will pass them. And it will be like a very different situation, you know, where now you have a young person who has a ton of experience, even though they only had a couple years, but just because their frequency and the rate at which they finish stuff has been higher and it started to actually snowball to the point where they start to gain all this kind of experience. Also, I would really like to hear your guys' kind of stories. Like, you can put in the comments down below. I'll be responding to every single comment for sure, you know? And kind of like, what do you guys think about success and like, what are you guys currently working towards? Because I love giving, you know, general advice, but it'd be great if I could give kind of some tips and tricks for people with specific situations as well. Because I think it's, honestly, there's just so much stuff I could talk about, and it's hard if it's really not relevant to you. Because I think the key is that like we're all at different stages, to be honest, right? Like Jeff Bezos and, you know, Jensen Huang, those people are all at different stages of kind of their success journey. Even though they're both super successful, I guarantee you their priorities are kind of different and they still have a lot of growth to do. And so like even us, we're at very different levels of kind of our success journey as well, right? Like we are maybe learning different aspects, different lessons, going through different hardships and different things. So really, it's not about like where you are now. It's just like the biggest thing is like, can you just keep going, keep learning, and just not give up, right? And that's the other thing I want to talk about, like not giving up. Of course, we hear it all the time, right? Don't give up. But why is it actually so important? Well, the reason is because like when you give up, it's funny to me because a lot of people are scared of failure. A lot of people are so concerned about failure. They don't want to seem as if they have failed, right? But it's like when you give up, you actually are accepting 100% defeat and failure. But people like to like give up instead because it's a safer option because you kind of have control over it. You decide when you quit and when you stop. And so because of that, people like that security more than if they actually had, you know, failed on their own and that like forced them out of it. But like I'm fine with making a calculated decision to stop doing something. But if you're just quitting because it's not working in the beginning, I don't think that's a very smart idea because quitting is really 100% chance of permanent failure if you think about it. Because as soon as you quit, you're not going to retry again. And that's the equivalent of like an ultimate permanent failure. Whereas everything else, if you just keep going and keep learning, like I highly doubt that there are things that you really cannot do. Maybe there are some like outer limits, like I will probably not be able to like do a huge windmill dunk, right? No matter how hard I try. But besides that, I think most things in the general world that are like actually, you know, the way we define success can generally be learned through many years of just practice, repetition, and continuous learning. So this is kind of what we got here. And so because of that, I think like a lot of people are just used to kind of giving up, and really giving up is just like kind of the worst, because you're really just like guaranteeing failure. It's like you are, I don't know how to say this, but you're like kind of turning the final lock in the door that's closing it, and you're fully closing it and locking it shut so that that opportunity is no longer open. Versus if you keep failing, yeah, maybe you keep getting the door slammed in your face, but that door is still opening and closing sometimes. And so there's still that chance there. A lot of people talk about success, and they talk about Michael Jordan and how, you know, he had so many like amazing shots, etc., and he like made a bunch of game-winning points. But the reality is, like, Michael Jordan wasn't born like able to just, you know, start dribbling with a basketball. So if you think about that, that means he was born just like a pretty regular human. Yeah, maybe he has some genetic like crazy thing that allows him to be a better basketball player. But I would say for the most part, it's a lot of hard work, because even if you have that skill, if you don't work hard, you're still gonna get beat by a lot of like your competitors and things like that. That means that there was at a point, just think about this, there's a point when Michael Jordan was younger and he couldn't make a basket for his life. Like, he couldn't dribble a basketball. Just imagine that, right? But like at that time, if you really sucked at basketball, most people would say, oh, it's just not for you. You should just give up. This is not your sport, right? But then there's the people who just like ruthlessly kind of chase their dream of like becoming a successful basketball player, and they just continuously put in the reps, continuously working hard, and they continue to fail too. Like, definitely, you know, missed a ton of shots in general. And it's like the key of successful people is they just keep trying. It's like you have a set percentage for success for every, like, you know, ball you just throw up in the air, right? Like if you throw a half court shot, it's technically not 0% chance that it's gonna go in. It could actually go in, right? But if you shoot like a 3-pointer and then you have some practice and you shoot a 2-pointer, and your percentage is gonna continue to increase. But even if you have 100%, let's say, shooting range or shooting point percentage, and you fire that away, then like, what if you just never shoot though? It doesn't matter if you have 100%. If you never shoot, it doesn't matter. So that's why it's like, if you want to become successful, you really have to just keep shooting the ball again and again. Because unless you're like, you know, Steph Curry and just everything goes in or something, like, you're gonna have a lot of missed shots. And the only way to deal with that is really to just keep shooting as much as possible so that eventually one will go in. And that's exactly what success, that's like the most similar thing to kind of the failure I was talking about, right? If you keep failing, eventually you'll have enough lessons and you'll know exactly the kind of what you need to do to actually make some sort of successful product or run a successful business, yeah, et cetera, et cetera. This is the last, looks like the last figure. This is a king, so you need to put on his crown and stuff. But really, one thing I've realized is that like throughout this journey of trying to improve yourself, you really have to kind of figure out every little thing you can that's gonna push you forward and try to, like, you know, get you to that next level. Like, it's almost like if you're kind of doing rock climbing, right? And you're trying to get to the top of this really hard to get to mountain. And like nobody really gets there. It's just a super difficult thing. So like you would probably take as many like energy bars as you could fit in your backpack. You'd probably take a bunch of water. You, like, if someone gave you like an energy drink, you'd probably be like, yeah, I'll try it, because I need everything I can possibly get my hands on to, you know, accomplish this crazy like feat, right? Crazy accomplishment, and like just get to the top. Success is the same way. It's such a hard journey that like you need every little piece of extra motivation, extra drive, extra reason to just keep going. And so that's why it's like, if you surround yourself with people who don't see your vision, or who don't like have those big goals that, you know, and they don't work towards those big goals, it's really gonna drain you, because you are already in such a precarious situation. Like, imagine you're climbing Mount Everest and it's a really hard climb. It's like icy, it's snowing. And then some guy ahead of you is like, wow, that's crazy. I would never imagine like you're climbing Mount Everest. You could, like, I don't think you can do that. Like, you're not gonna make it. Like, you're already at the point where you're probably like, you're maybe have some frostbite. Yeah, I don't know where I'm gonna put all these, but we'll figure it out. Yeah, anyway, so put anything in the comments you guys want me to answer, any questions you want me to address in a future video. Happy to answer everything. Make sure you guys subscribe for more, and make sure you guys like so I know you guys are watching. Okay, see you in the next one. Bro.